Thanks for joining. Here we go. I'm Dr. Blood, and we are beginning our Linux 1 session. Happy to have you here today. So our session today is comprised of 32 official questions and a number of side questions, all designed to mimic those on the LPI exam. Question number 1 says, which of the following is a variant of Debian? Comes from domain 1. We're going to talk a good bit about the makeup of the exam and your study resources and types of questions and all kinds of things today. So Debian, which I think of the two main forks as being the Debian with Ubuntu, and then our other side being the Red Hat with CentOS and Fedora. All right, you get points for getting the answer correct, more points for getting it ahead of other people. And there's our leaderboard. So question number 2 is coming up. It says, what is meant by free software? There are 5 domains on the exam. We're going to touch on all of them today a little bit. Domain 1 does not really have anything technical. It's all about open source concepts, common open source applications, licensing, the main distributions, just some hodgepodge things, nothing technical. In the realm of free software, it's important you know that it means that the software can be used for whatever you choose once you've lawfully obtained it. You may have had to purchase it. You may be required to purchase a maintenance agreement. Once it's yours, it's yours. Nothing to do with money. Question number 3. So this concept gives you the right to freely distribute and modify versions of the source code, but it requires the same of its derivatives. So Jimbo writes a piece of software, and when Jimbo's done, says, hey, here's the source code, and you can have it at no charge. So I take that code and I modify it. I turn it into a new product, or maybe I just make it a little bit better. Copyleft, I answered this, is kind of the idea of pay it forward. I was given the source code, I should give away the source code. It was given to me for free, I should give it away for free. So let's keep doing that. Copyleft. It's not a law, just a concept. Dropping in the chat bar information to join our game if you have not already joined. We'd love to have you. We're only on question 4 now. This is our first multi-select question. It says, which of the following are common package manager tools in Linux? You are asked to select 4. Your exam is made up of 40 questions. 30 of them are going to be standard, like we've seen this far, where you choose the best answer. But 7 of them are going to be like this, where you need to choose all that apply. And it'll tell you select 3, select 4. And that leaves 3. 3 fill in the blanks. We'll try and talk about a little bit later. Make sure you select 4. If it says 4, select 4. If it's 3, select 3. We are told you do not get any partial credit on these. So you either get the answer completely wrong or completely right. Don't miss out. So our 3.5 package managers, I always say that that are talked about in the LPI guide, include apt-get, which is using our Debian versions of Linux, and it's built on top of dpkg. You would use RPM in Red Hat, and Yum in your SUSE, or also Red Hat. I think it's important to make sure you know the text, the command line to install a package with any one of these utilities. Number 5, still on domain 1, a couple more questions. It says, which of the following applications is a web server? One more thing about domain 1. I see plenty of people get 100% on this domain. You just need to make sure you review the material. Take a look at it. Spend a few minutes looking at the content. In that, you will find it lists some web servers, including Nginx, sometimes called Nginx. Not sure what it is. You let me know. And the last domain 1 question says, select all open source image editing applications. And at the end of this question, I am going to show you the LPI guide. It's important to know that the LPI guide may not be your official textbook resource. The textbook resource, I think, is probably better for learning Linux, whereas the official study guide published by LPI, same people who wrote the exam, is a little bit better for passing the exam. And it's what I teach from, but of course, you're more than welcome to use whatever you would like. One of the things I truly like about the guide is that it's already broken down into the 5 topics, domains, competencies, chapters. You see it called different things, but it's already broken down. In each one of these topics, you will likely see subtopics. So for instance, topic 4 is called the Linux operating system, and 4.1 is choosing an operating system, or 4.2, how about 4.3, where data is stored. It's very important to use this study guide. It is the Bible. It's the blueprint for the exam. Case in point, each of these subtopics has an introductory page. So here we're on topic 4, the Linux operating system, subtopic 4.3, where data is stored. We have 40 questions on the exam. Remember, I told you that. It's telling us that in this domain, 4.3, we are going to have 3 questions that come directly from this section. That's all. There's some key knowledge areas. This is the gold, this partial list of the used files, terms, and utilities. I believe a good 50 to 55% of your exam is going to come from these items that they are mentioning right here, which granted doesn't really tell you much. But PS, what is it? Top, what does it look like? Free, what kind of parameters are involved with it? What can you find in the Etsy directory? Where can you find this type of file? What special properties might you find for, I don't know, the proc directory? You need to know these items inside and out. So as we have concluded the topic 1 section, I do want to go back and just take a quick look at it. Some of the things that they're going to ask you about it, remember, are those common open source applications. So it's not unreasonable to think you might see a question about LibreOffice or OpenOffice, StarOffice. A question might say, what's the PowerPoint equivalent? Well, you need to know that that's called Impress. How about web browsers? Think of open source web browsers. We think of Mozilla and Chromium and Firefox. Be sure to know highlights of all of these multimedia programs. I think there's 5 or 6. No, Blender, 3D, GIMP, think Photoshop, Inkscape, SVG. That's your vector graphics editor. Know those. Some server programs, just know these by name. Remember, we asked about a web server. They mentioned Apache, Nginx, and LightTPD. Familiarize yourself with the information from topic 1 and get 100% on that domain. Now we're moving to topic 2. Topic 2, you really start learning Linux, how to get around, how to read text files, how to get help. First question asks, in which directory can you find documentation for installed packages? You can expect to have 2 or 3 questions on your exam about directories. Where are things located? So make sure you've reviewed those, the ones that are given to you. You'll find that is kept in the USR share doc. I'm going to call that user from here on if we see any more. I'm not going to find very much, or not often going to find very useful documentation in this directory, but it is there. Question number 8. Which of the following is not used for reading a text file? Given a few different programs throughout my demonstrations, I'm going to use the CAT program just because maybe because it's 3 letters, it saves me an extra character of typing. I'm not sure. As you review this, you'll learn that grep is not for reading a text file, rather it is used for searching a text file, like hitting Control F in Notepad, sort of. What about the others? Less, this is your full-featured text reader. It's going to open the whole file. You can page up, you can page down, you can use your wheel mouse, whatever the case may be. Your others, here's head. Head by default is going to view the top 10 lines of your text file. Really not all that useful, probably. Tail, on the other hand, is going to show your bottom 10 lines, which is much more useful for logging. Key point for tail. There's a special parameter, tail-f for follow. Follow means that it's going to open it up. It's going to show those last 10 by default. We can change it whatever we want, 20. So boom, here's our last 20 entries at the ATM. But it's going to keep it open. It's going to follow it. So you come up and withdraw another $20, pop, it's going to put it on there. Another $20, whatever the case is. It's going to allow you to follow it in real time. Number 9, which of the following is not valid for learning about the command grep? We're given a few different ways to get help from the command line for most any of our commands. We're going to demonstrate this. This will be the first time I open up my Linux terminal. I just picked grep at random, just a random command. We could have viewed any one of them. I'm using Ubuntu. I'm going to hit Control-Alt-T for opening up my bash terminal. That's what this terminal is called. It's bash. All right, let's look at the first one. So we'll use the man pages, man grep. And when I do that, I find out various pieces of information. The next one is the info pages. Now, I'm going to go back, man pages. Here's a key thing that you need to know for man pages. I encourage you to write it down. Man pages are just text files. That's it, just plain Jane text files. Why is that important to know? Because info pages, very similar in the content that's provided, but they are not text files. They are called nodes, and nodes are hyperlinked. So I can go through here and find any one spot that has a star, hit the space bar, and I'm going to be linked to that node. And then the last one is going to be the command name -- help, usually a shorter amount of information than your man or your info. In the Windows world, we see all kinds of variations of this, /, /help, -- whatever, I mean, all kinds of different things. But for our exam, we want to remember it's -- help. All right, first side question for you to answer in your chat bar. Man pages, I told you, are text files. One of the programs we just talked about in the previous question is used to render these text files. So what program is rendering this text file? Is it head, tail, less, or grep? Let's see what we get in here. All right, I see less. Yes, less is correct. And you can do this by process of elimination, if nothing else. With we talked about this earlier and said that grep is not used for reading the text file, but we have head, top 10, tail, bottom 10, so it really leaves less. Excellent. Got a great game going here. Good scoreboard. All right, you'll have 3 questions on your directory. We get that from the LPI guide. For navigating the Linux directory structure, I'll try and use this question and the next to cover everything you could possibly need to know about it. Question reads, while in the /home/jimbo/downloads directory, where will cd dot take you? And we are going to demonstrate this. I always start off with what I believe to be an essential item is the pwd command. You need to know this. So always find out what directory you're in. So if I do pwd, see I'm in my home directory, change that directory, pwd is going to change. Now, I want to update this so that I don't have to keep doing pwd. You don't need to know how to do that. Not going to hurt you, but so now I'm going to go into this directory. Now, the question was, where will cd dot take you? And the answer is nowhere. Dot refers to the current directory. It is not going to move you. You can build upon it, but it's not going to move you. If I use cd dot dot, that is going to bring me back one level. So what if I want to get back to where I was just at? If I want to go back forward into that downloads directory, we are mostly familiar with just doing a space, cd downloads. And yes, that did work. I'm going to go and do the dot dot one more time because I want to demonstrate, what about the single dot? When am I going to use the single dot? How about if I just, same thing, I just saying I want to move to downloads. That is the same thing. It is telling you dot, use your current directory and build onto it. It's important because if you see a question like this, cd.downloads or cp.downloads or something like that, versus one with a pair of dots, you have to make sure you understand, where am I at? If it's a dot, I'm in the current directory moving forward. If it's a pair of dots, I'm first backtracking before I can move forward. So that is important to know the difference. All right, a couple more. cd dot dot slash slash dot dot, that's going to bring me back 2 levels. cd slash, going to bring me to the root directory. cd tilde, going to bring me to my home directory. The last thing I want to point out about this is so confusing, but it's just the way it is. cd slash is telling you I'm going to the top level directory. I'm going to the root directory. However, there is another directory underneath that we could access called cd slash root by using that command rather. Slash root slash root is a home directory for our super user named root. All of our other users are going to have their home directory here under slash home. So slash home slash youngblood slash home slash jimbo. But there's no slash home slash root. There's just slash root. What's in that directory? Same kind of things you would find in your own home directory. Documents, downloads, settings, of the like. No system files, nothing like that. It's just a home directory for our super user. All right, that was a long demonstration. We're going to do one more demonstration after the next question, but it will certainly be shorter. This one says, which command shows the contents of all subdirectories? This is one of those gotcha questions. Frequently see more wrong answers than right. So let's see if we're busting up any streaks today. Yeah, quite a few. 10 of you chose the lowercase, 3 if you did the capital. This is a very common practice question. It is harped on the exam and the prep material. I think it's something you're likely to see. So it's important to know your LS. If we do LS on its own, descending alphabetical order. Whereas if we do ls dash lowercase r, it's just reversing it. That's all it's doing. Now we're going Z to A. We do a capital R, that's recursive. And what does recursive mean? It means it's going to show you the current directory and the contents of those subdirectories and those subdirectories and subdirectories. Bigger data takes the bigger letter, okay? ls dash capital R. Reverse, not very useful for us. Most all of your other commands, your CP, your MVs, your, whoever, whatever commands you want to look at, it would be the same. And the reason for that is ls is the only one that makes sense. We're looking at it and we want to reverse the order of how we see it. But your other commands are kind of instantaneous. They're behind the scenes. We don't have any reason that we would reverse it. If we say delete all these files, does it matter if it deletes them in reverse order or renames them in reverse order? No, it really doesn't. So I don't think there's a difference on the other commands. But for ls, capital R, you want to remember that. Recursive's the bigger word than reverse. All right, last one's ls-l. It's your long listings. Here's your file permissions, your links, owner group, size, all that jazz. And then in the side question, Why does this last one show the dots? What does the dot represent in front of these file names when I do ls-a? Yeah, those are hidden files, right on, thanks. All right, so I think that will give you all the information that you need to answer your 3 navigation questions. All right, let's see what we did to our leaderboard. All right, got some changes. That's all right, plenty of time to get our streaks back. This one says, use the following character to wrap a long command in terminal. What does the wrapping mean? It means as we're typing our command, we want to be able to hit the carriage return button, the enter button on our keyboard without executing. We just want to get it back to where we started. Maybe it's for visualization so we can see what's going on. That's difficult to do. We can't just do that on some commands. Just very simply, if I wanted to do ls-l from my terminal, well, I can't hit ls and then enter and then -l. It doesn't know what I'm going to do. But if I use the backslash, I can wrap any command and just continue it to the next. If I wanted to do my, I could do all kinds of things. Doesn't really make much sense with that one, but it's just a quick representative using the slash to wrap that command. Just visual. We hit the up arrow, it even goes back to the same line. Linux doesn't even know we've done it. It's just for us. Number 13. It's been a while since we had a multi-select. I'm sure you were missing them. We are entering domain 3 at this point. Domain 3 is about archiving, compression, and scripting. This question says, the following programs compress by default. Now, I did not tell you how many to select on this. I believe on your exam it does. But I wanted to bust some streaks. Most people do this. Most people are going to click tar. Our guide makes a very significant point to state that tar is not a compression program. Tar is an archiving program. Zip is compression. That's what it does. Gzip, compression. It's what it does. Tar, I don't think anyone's going to use tar without compression, but it's not. It's an archiving program until you add the compression flag into the command. So keep that in mind. Next one says, which of the following could extract the contents of a tarball file named myfile.tar? A rare break in my talking for you. While zip has unzip, gzip has gunzip, there's no such thing as untar. Tar is kind of all encompassing. Is all the creating, extracting is all done with just the tar command. Take a look at this letter directly after the tar. If you see an X there, X is for extract. C is for create. That means we're creating the tarball file. We are adding things into it. So X or C really should narrow things down for you. Remember, X extract, C create. However, I'm going to tell you that tar has a number of commands, a number of parameters that can be necessary for it. How are you possibly expected to memorize them all? Well, I don't think you are. And here's what I'm going to tell you. We're going to go back to our LPI guide, and I want to point out to you that throughout the book, which people tell me every week, oh, it's dry. I think I'll have that word written down somewhere to share. It's a dry book. Well, yeah. Who could possibly just read this and get anything out of it? It would certainly be difficult. I can't. But where I do get something out of it is to follow along, actually execute these commands in my own terminal. When I do this, when I did it, I found that a number of the commands didn't work. Maybe I mistyped them, or maybe I had to install a package, or I had to modify a configuration file. Maybe my distribution had a different command. Maybe my distribution just looked different. That's okay. It was all valuable in learning really challenging concept, a really challenging operating system. When you do this, you will find a few, my own experience, I found a few questions on the exam came directly from these, really word for word. Had a couple more that were combinations of a couple of them that were very evident, and I was easily able to make the leap. Lastly, as you go through these, you're going to see the options that they want you to know for commands. When you look at the compression and we talk about doing zip and gzip or xz compression, here we've given you 3 lines of how to do each one of those. These are kind of important to go through and know these. Know that that Z is for zip, that J is for zip2, that capital J is for XZ. You may see a question on your exam. That may be one of the fill in the blank questions where you've got to type that in there. Go through, really take advantage of your guide. Number 15, now we're going to the scripting part, still in domain 3. Says which one of the following commands will direct error messages to the file error.log. This is known as the standard error. When you create a script, it's not not a stretch to think that it may be running in an unattended state, perhaps a backup script. Well, if your backup script is running and it runs across a directory that it can't back up, we don't want it to just pop up on the screen and disappear. That's not going to help us. We need to capture that error message. Linux allows us to do this with the standard error, which is channel 2. So how do we actually do this? Well, we run our command and we add a space, a 2, a greater than sign, and then tell it where we're going to send it to. Maybe we're going to send it to a text file. Maybe we're going to send it to another script to send an email. Maybe we're going to send it to a print job. Who knows? That's up to us. But we want to remember the standard error is channel 2. Probably want to look at your other channels. Make sure you have an understanding of those. All right, a side question for you. Everything else being the same, we're looking at the correct answer here in the blue. The only thing I want to change is instead of using 1 greater than symbol, I want to use 2 greater than symbols. What's the difference between using 1 greater than symbol or 2 greater than symbols? Yeah, right. So if I use 1, it is going to create a new file. It's going to overwrite error.log. If I have a pair of them, it is going to append to it. Monday morning, I want it to have Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. I want to make sure I'm appending to it. And next up, what is the return value of a successfully executed shell script? This is the halfway point of our game. Pretty good on time. The second half goes a little bit faster than the first half. Everybody's enjoying the session, taking some notes, writing down what you feel good about, anything you don't feel good about. Answer to this is 0. It means 0 errors were returned. You can set up your script with anything from 1 to 255 to customize your errors. Maybe 1 is invalid username, 2 invalid password, 3 is out of disk space, whatever you want to do. But 0 is reserved for 0 errors were returned, which is okay. Number 17, which of the following is a valid shebang? Domain 3, hands down, the most technical part of the exam. When it gets into the scripting, it really involves a lot of other commands to go along with it, but certainly the most rewarding. Our shebang is indeed the hashtag exclamation point. Call that a tic-tac-toe board, number symbol, pound, all of those. Depends on how old you are. Number 18, which are invalid extensions for a Linux script? Let's drop to our Linux terminal here. A little discussion about this. Answer is none of these. Linux does not use extensions. Sure, I'm looking at this file. It says scenario1.sh, but that's only because I chose to call it .sh. It's a convenience for other people who are going to come back and look at this. I could have called it scenario1. Period. I could have called it scenario1 ... I could have called it scenario1.exe, scenario1.py, whatever I wanted to. Doesn't matter. Just for other people to look at. But we are told that we need to know three things. We need to do three things for this to execute. The very first one is we are looking for an execute bit. Say, it's the red light flashing. It's one that the exam's probably most likely to question you about is, do we have an execute bit that applies for our user? The next thing goes back to that shebang that we were just talking about. What is the shebang? The shebang is what's going to tell our terminal what program interprets this script. This one's telling us /bin/bash. This is just a bash script. If I wanted it to run Python, I would have said /bin/python, and it'd be nice of me to change the name to a .py, but not required. This is what determines how it's going to be interpreted. All right, and then the last thing that's pointed out is that I cannot just do scenario1.sh. Even though I'm in this directory right now, you can all see it, not going to run. Linux says you have to explicitly state the location of the file you're wanting to run. It's in my current directory. How do I say it's in the current directory? /. Now, there are some provisions that go along with that. If it was in my path environment, well, obviously I don't have to do that then. If I am in a completely different directory, it's not going to work. I would have to go and be, again, explicit to say where the file is that I'm wanting to run. But those are the three things: execute bit, valid shebang, and maybe a / or some direct location command for you. And let's wrap up domain 3. To add all files in the current directory to myarchive.tar, run the following command. I'll give you a hint to this one. There's one question that I deem as being more incorrect than others. One answer that is more incorrect than others. And that's because we've already talked about it. Let's see. So I saw a couple people that chose the blue one. That's okay. Well, this is all about learning. Remember, -x, that is extract. We are not adding files if we see the -x. Really, the question is not even about tar. It's really about star versus star.star. If I look at my current directory and I do one star, ls-l one star, you can see that I have a pair of files that show up. However, if I do one star.star, I do not. I only get one. How come? Because remember, there are no extensions in Linux. This wildcard says show me all files that start with a 1 and then have something or nothing afterwards. That's it. That's the only condition. But when I did star.star, I'm very specifically saying show me all files that start with a 1 and have a dot somewhere afterwards. In the Linux world, you would probably never use star.star. Can't say you never would, but be aware of that. Be suspicious of any test questions, maybe that had star.star. 20, true or false, you don't have any of these on the exam, but I told you, we got to speed it up a little on the second half. It says the Macintosh OS is based on Linux. It is not. Both the Macintosh OS and Linux are based on Unix. Our guide says that Macintosh is based heavily on BSD Unix. So they're siblings, not a parent-child type relationship. 21, how we're going into domain 4. This says which program shows the contents of the ring buffer and is overwritten once full. Domain 4 really introduces things to see a little bit more on the back end of your system. How's your CPU being used? How is your RAM being used? What about your drive? Maybe your network settings? Who's logged in? Who has been logged in? Answer to this question is dmessage. The dmessage is going to show you the contents of the ring buffer. That's the kernel. That's the thing that we're not currently seeing. We're really interacting with some sort of a shell. We need to find out what's happening in the kernel. That's our ring buffer. It does not save anything to the hard drive. There's no log file kept on the drive. It's just kept in a designated amount of RAM. Once it's full, oldest entry gets wiped out with a newer entry. So what happens if you reboot your computer? Well, clearly, it's just in RAM, so it's going to reset the ring buffer. "22. Which program is similar to Task Manager in that it will show processes with the highest resources?" I think you can expect to see 2 or 3 questions on your exam that ask about what program is currently running or what program generated this content, which means it's really important that you actually try these applications, that you open them up in your terminal. If you don't have one, use the WGU lab environment. Be familiar with what they look like. Know that your distribution might look slightly different. They're going to be very similar. If I look at the top command, top looks a little bit like Task Manager in that I've got a summary of my CPU usage, of my memory usage. I've got a list of everything that's running, our PIDs, that's our process ID, who's actually running it. See the percent CPU, memory, time, command, all that jazz. I have a side question for you. What one key can I press to get out of this program? I use it to get out of many programs that I am running in terminal. Q, lowercase q in particular. Yeah, right on. So know what this program looks like. Make sure you can recognize it. What it looks like, any output that might be coming from it. Number 23, I told you, check these directory questions. Log files are commonly found within this directory. I didn't give you the full directory name because that would have been a giveaway. /var/logs is where you're going to find that. So under /var. Next up, where is the Linux kernel stored? Almost always see about half the people miss this one. Go with just a single wrong answer. Let's see how we do today. There's one answer that is definitely more wrong than the others, because we have talked about it. It is /boot. You'll see again, we've kind of got that even distribution here. /boot is where you're going to find your kernel. What's /root? Remember, we talked about that earlier. /root is your home directory for the super user named root. Not finding any system files in there, just finding things related to that user, their own personal home directory. How about this one here? So maybe this is going to be one of those fill in the blank questions that you're going to have. You're going to have 3 of those on your exam. It says, which character signifies a standard user is logged into the shell? Question might be, maybe it's tar. What letters are missing from this tar command to enable zip compression? It's going to be something where you need to enter a word, a letter, or a symbol. You're not writing a script. You're not doing anything too extravagant. but you are going to be doing something other than just clicking on your radio buttons for 3 of those questions on the exam. I've been logged in as a standard user throughout our session, and you can see I've got the $sign. Looks like an S for standard, right? I use my SU command, log in as root privileges. It's going to change to the hashtag symbol. That's just common nomenclature. You can change it, but it would certainly, I think that would be kind of a bad idea, certainly a bad practice. All right, that's it for domain 4. Now we're moving to domain 5. Domain 5, I tell everybody this is the bane of my existence. Most students who fall short on the exam are going to take domain 5. I'm not even going to go over this question because you're all going to know it. Chmod, great. Domain 5 is called File and Security Permissions. However, there are 8 questions that come from this domain, and at most, one of them is going to be related to Chmod. We're going to look at a number of other items that you can expect to see. Don't stop studying domain 5 because I got tired, or because I knew Chmod, so I figured I knew what it was all about. It's not the most technically challenging, but if you don't review it, you are quite likely to do poorly. We want you to do great. We want you to pass this exam on the first try or the next try if you've already taken it before. That's okay. Make sure you give domain 5 the equal amount of love as all of the other domains. File permissions are read from left to right. 3 groups of the read, write, execute. I want you to stack the following accordingly. So the top is the left side. I've always heard this called the owner section. However, it is sometimes called the user section, or maybe even more frequently called the user section, which is kind of important for a later demo that we're going to do. So it is the owner or user, owner, user, group, and other. Which command creates a new user named Jimbo with a home directory? Every system should have a Jimbo user, right? I'm going to open up my LPI guide. Answer to that is the -M. So why did I pick that question to put in our session today? Because here they have asked you about it in the explorational exercises. There are a number of other parameters that they could have asked you about. Must be important. At the end of every subtopic, they have these explorational exercises and another set called guided exercises. So guided and explorational. Check these out. I had a couple questions on my exam that came directly from these. What's more valuable than having the question beforehand, being able to work it? What confidence you have when you go, I've already tried this. Make sure you go through these, answer these. It's a little too difficult for you to actually answer. Well, guess what? They give you the answers a little bit further down the book. So no reason to not know those questions. 29, which command is used to reset a user's password? So much more to domain 5. Like I say, don't be short on it. Passwords are reset with passwd command. And building on top of that one, all right, man, back with an answer streak of 3. Way to go. All right, building on top of that, now we're going to ask you, which file contains user passwords? I think it's almost a guarantee on your exam, you're going to have 1 or 2 questions about what we are going to cover in this next demonstration. Hartley talks about this. So the file containing user passwords is indeed Etsy Shadow. But we're not going to start with Etsy Shadow. We're going to start with Etsy PassWD, which I am going to call password from here on. You know what the abbreviation is. First things first, with the Etsy password file, is that any user can view the contents of it. I'm still logged in as a standard user, and I am able to see this. What does it look like? Well, it is a text file, and it is separated by colons. There's a number of fields separated by colons. You need to know what the makeup of this file is, what's in it, and therefore also means what's not in it. We already said passwords are not in here. Passwords are in Etsy Shadow. Why is it called Etsy Password? Well, it's legacy. It used to be kept here. They've removed it. It was not secure, but they still kept the rest of the file. Just replace the password with an X. Not an encrypted X, it's just a placeholder. So know this for the exam. Username, it's an X. The user ID, so Jimbo's user ID is 1002. The default group, or who that user belongs to, their home directory, and their default terminal. That's it. No password, no expiration date, no locked or unlocked time. All of that is going to be covered in, where at? Etsy Shadow. But I can't view that. You have to have elevated permissions to view Etsy Shadow. So put that in there. Back in. And I'm going to see my contents for this. Here I have a username, I have a password, have a whole lot more information. So this password is obviously not my real password. It is encrypted. So I will ask a question of you in the chat bar. Tell me, who can decrypt the password? The answer to that is nobody. It is actually called a one-way encrypted password, a salted hashed password. It is not meant to be decrypted. The root user is not going to be able to do it. If you're the owner of the password, you're not going to be able to do it. If you don't know it, it is just going to have to be reset. Some other things that I always think is important to point out with this. You have various spots that are dates. I guess I could have gone back here. Here's the actual makeup of this. It says it's the user, password, the last change, minimum and maximum age, warning, inactive, expiration date, things like that. When we look at it, we see these numbers here. These don't look like valid dates to me. That's because they're called epoch dates. And in order to read an epoch date, we need to go to a website and do some sort of conversion on it. If I see an account like Jimbo that has an exclamation point in it, just a single exclamation point, that tells me the password has not been set. If I look a little further, I can find out that if I see two of them, I should know that this means a disabled account with no password. Hopefully that's all you need to know about Etsy Shadow and Etsy PassWD. All right, we got two more official questions and two side questions to finish out our game. 31, a user account can be created with the passwd command, true or false? It cannot. It can be used to set a password, reset a password, lock and unlock an account. So very narrow uses for passwd command. All right, last official question, two side questions, remember. This question reads, what is the UID of the first regular user created on a Linux system? So my first side question is going to be, what file can I look at to see all of my user IDs and validate the answer to this one? What do you think? What file am I going to open so that I can find out the UID of my first regular user? Well, that's going to be my Etsy PassWD. Very good. Etsy PassWD, I know I'm the first regular user, and it is 1000. All right, last question of the session. What about the UID for root? Correct, root slash Etsy, has WD, and I see several people that have said 0. Correct, the root user is going to be 0. All right, that concludes our game. Let's take a look at our leaderboard. Molly, third place. CJ, second place. These are outstanding scores. Congratulations. Thank you all. I hope you have enjoyed the session.